Good evening, everyone, and welcome to. Oh my God, Chris, you just have me going in the private chat. I can't even talk. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loading Bag NUFC away days. We are back again, and I tell you what, I've got to get this in right now because if you didn't watch for the Loaded Transfer Show with Graham Bailey, get involved in that cracking show with Graham from 90 Min, giving us all the lowdown of all things Newcastle United transfers and some little snippets there to take away. So if you haven't watched it yet, get involved. That is for sure. But this is away days. We are back, and to see out the year, the calendar year of fixtures. It is Leeds United next. And look, just very, very quickly, Chris, what are your thoughts going into the last game of the calendar year? You confident?
I am, but it makes me a little bit nervous because sometimes when you feel confident, it kind of backfires. I'll be honest. I wouldn't say I was confident. I knew we could get a result against Leicester, but I wasn't feeling like really good about it. I was thinking a draw will do, you know what I mean? And then go and perform the way we did. 3 points, clean sheet, comfortably beating Leicester. So like it's almost as if we're all waiting for this, this bad period. And I just hope it doesn't come tomorrow. But other than that, yeah, I am feeling pretty good because what we're seeing on the pitch is great, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Definitely. And look, Leeds are going to provide their own particular type of test, and we'll get into that in just a second. But firstly, thank you to Seattle Geordie for becoming a member of the Loaded family on YouTube. Thank you for your support. We all appreciate it. We've got the likes of Yano Spanner in the house. Woodeye is in the house tonight. Another resident Spanner, Lisa, is in the house too. We've got Koch. Welcome, Koch, to the channel. We've got so many others. We've got Richo in the house. Welcome, Richo. Jay Smith, Truls, welcome, guys. Frederick, welcome to the channel. If you're first to the channel, get that subscribe. We are 80 away from the 5K. We are getting ever closer. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, get there and hit that sub. Jordan Toon for Life, welcome. Great to have you in there. Davey, welcome to the channel. Great to have you in there. And there are many more as well. But look, as always, when we talk about a preview, we have to get the opposition's point of view. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome in Joe, Leeds fan. Welcome in, Joe. How are you doing, my man?
All good, man. All good. Not as buoyant and happy as you folks, but it is what it is. Yeah. New Year's Eve.
And to be fair, I'm going to come on to an interesting topic because you tweeted something out earlier that I want to touch on. But just firstly, just let us know where you're from. What channel do you represent from the Leeds perspective?
Yeah. So Just Joe Football Show is what it was. Previously, I was on All Leeds TV. Leeds fan for my sins. I'm originally from Halifax Way, which is West Yorkshire. I actually live in the northeast now. For any mags watching, I live in Sunderland. So yeah, exactly. I actually work in. I work in Newcastle. Yeah, I work in Newcastle though. I work in Benwell. A few of the Geordies watching might know this. So so I actually live in the northeast now, Sunderland. So yeah. For my sins.
Definitely for your sins. But the fact you work in Newcastle, I think may override.
Yeah. I had to get that in there.
Definitely. But no, look, Joe, welcome to the channel. I know you've been on a different preview previously with our man Rich from Loaded. So you definitely come well recommended. That is for sure. But look, you've touched on you're not as buoyant as us at the moment. I mean, look, I'll throw up the league table. You probably won't want to see it right now. 15th in the table. 15 points so far, 4 wins, 3 draws, 8 defeats. Just really just quickly give us an assessment of your season from your perspective as Leeds fan.
Yeah, as a Leeds fan, from my perspective, I'm not enjoying it. It sounds mad, but like I enjoyed. It really does sound mad as I'm mouthing this out to you, but I enjoyed getting spanked under Bielsa more so than I'm enjoying what's happening now. Like, because Leeds United had a go. I don't see that anymore. You know, I'm really disappointed with the current state of the club. That's just, you know, I'm grateful we're back in the Premier League, etc. But at the minute, I'm a little bit disenchanted. Is that the right word? With Leeds United currently, I'm not a big supporter of Jesse. He's had some good results. I think obviously winning at Liverpool, you know, beating Chelsea, amazing. But it's just too inconsistent. And I think Leeds United can perform well against the better sides due to the style that we play. But when going up against teams in and around us, we just are so poor. I think Jesse plays with a counter-pressing style and wants to create, I guess, madness. And at times, we don't want the ball, right? We want the opposition to have it so we can press them, win it off them and get it to goal as quick as possible. But when the onus is on us to do something we found wanting, I think, you know, we don't really have a clear plan. We don't really have passages of play, whereas under Bielsa, I mean, look, I was reminiscing today when we beat you 5-2 under that season.
That was what I was going to ask you, Joe. I was going to ask you because you retweeted out something where it had the replay of the 5-2 in lockdown where you absolutely destroyed us, and you actually said that, which is why I wanted to ask you the question.
Because you know what? Do you know what I feel like? And this is mad. I feel like you beating us at Ellen Road last season with that Schneid John Joe Shelby free kick. I genuinely feel, though, it was a sliding doors moment for both football clubs. Yeah. Like Leeds United went that way and you won there, when really I don't think at the time you deserved to. And then from that game, you've just gone boof, you know. And naturally that was going to happen with the cash and all that sort of stuff. But I genuinely feel at that moment, because I guess you folks were like, oh, we might not stay in the division. You win at Ellen Road. It's probably not so much a smash and grab, but a bit of a lucky goal. And then both clubs have then just gone boom, you know. It genuinely feels like that. And as I say, I do not like watching us play at the minute. And I've already said on my preview, we won't get anything tomorrow. I think we'll get a bit of an hiding. I think for me, St James's Park now is probably the toughest place to go in English football in terms of the atmosphere. And because I've seen it, you know, war flags and all that, it looks a spectacle right now. And the fact that you're playing scintillating football, I just don't see how we get a result. I'm not positive, as you can see.
No, and look, what I like about what you've said, Joe, is you've looked at it from a kind of logical perspective, not just about the game that you've just mentioned there, but from my perspective, just in general with your football, from your football take, you know, from Leeds United, from a Jesse March to a Bielsa perspective, and really interesting that sliding doors moment. Chris, I'll come to you. You know, really interesting points from Joe with regards to that sliding doors moment against Leeds at Ellen Road last season. Do you agree that was that turning point? And interestingly, as a second point, Joe's mentioned that, you know, he prefers the Bielsa football to Jesse March. What do you think?
Yeah, do you know what? I had a couple of things to comment on what Joe said, and I also had a question for Joe. So remind me at the end when I finish my spiel to ask Joe a question. But yeah, no, I think it was a bit of a sliding doors moment. Now Joe says it, yeah, I totally agree, and I do remember from that game it was quite tight. And if anything, you probably could have said that maybe Leeds deserved, you know, the points. But then, as I say, you know, that John Joe Shelby free kick, you know, got us the points, which was obviously the most important thing. I think I was quite surprised when Joe mentioned, you know, about Jesse March, because I mean I don't know the general feeling of how everyone feels about Jesse March, and this is going to be my question after to Joe. But like I kind of got the impression that all the Leeds fans love Bielsa, even though, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, like I think people were kind of a bit like us under Sir Bobby Robson. Like we were all devastated when Sir Bobby Robson, you know, was kind of relieved of his duties. And to be fair, it was too soon. Like it shouldn't have happened. I think most fans would agree with that. But there were some areas of the fan base who were kind of, you know, wishing him out. And, you know, obviously, I think it was Freddie Shepherd said it was like killing Bambi. And was it almost like that for yourselves with Bielsa? Because I know, like you adored Bielsa, and he was such a character, and obviously a fantastic reputation within football. Loads of really, really big names all rated Bielsa, but like, is that how would you describe it, as like killing Bambi? And were you a bit disappointed with who you replaced Bielsa with? Because I know you said you're a bit disenchanted, with the football. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think for me, the fan base is split really. Although the match going fans, like the majority, obviously backed Bielsa, but a lot thought we were going down. I did. I think it had turned it around, but I'm a big Bielsa fan. Listen, I cried when he got sacked. I'm not even. I swear to God, like he had that big of an effect on me as a fan, and I know others feel the same. Like when he got sacked, for example, he had loads of people go to his house in Wetherby just to say bye to him. You know what I mean? Like this isn't your normal run of the mill manager for me. You know what I mean? Like you've mentioned with Robson, so it isn't the same. I think, look, everyone initially, I guess you support your manager, right? When they first come through the door. I hate this notion of fans that say to me, who disagree with me, for Leeds fans, will say, oh, yeah, you've never backed him, or da-da-da-da-da. I don't want my football team to lose. So ultimately, anyone who manages my football club, I want them to do well. Why would you ever want your manager to lose? Do you see what I'm saying? Until after a certain period of time, you can then make a fair judgment. I think it's getting to the stage now. For example, take City in isolation on the other day. We get beat 3-1. They post an XG of like 4.5, which is the highest of any team this season, right? Yes, we only lose 3-1. So you might look at it and say, oh, well, we're getting closer. We only lost 3-1. We got spanked 7-0 under Bielsa. We got spanked, but we had a go. This is my point. This is what really, really frustrates me, is like, I just don't see what the plan is. Not everyone agrees with me. Some do. Some do. So I think he saved his job with Liverpool and Bournemouth results. For me, I don't see us getting a result against Newcastle. I don't see us getting a result against West Ham. And then he's got Villa and Brentford. So them two will be, chance for him to save his job. I don't know. But then again, we need investment as well. You've heard this all before, man, no doubt.
Do you know what, Joe? That was kind of the question I wanted to ask. Like I was on Twitter earlier, and I saw a segment of the Jesse Marsh pre-match.
Yeah.
And he was asked, about Newcastle and the investment and stuff like that. And like, don't get me wrong, he wasn't as flippant as some managers, but I still find it absolutely flabbergasting that managers don't just come out. And maybe I'm wrong, Joe. Maybe you'll tell me I'm wrong, but his response to the question, "Oh, what do you think of Newcastle? How do you think they're doing?" was like, "Oh, well, when you've got money, this is what happens. The upturn in fortune and stuff like that." But from our perspective, Joe, like, when you look at the players who are performing now, and like, I forget which team it was that we played, but 7 of the players that were starting under Bruce were in the starting 11 when we performed recently. As I say, I forget which team it was, what the stat was from. But there's so many performers who are playing above and beyond what they were under Steve Bruce. And like, people say we spent money, and I understand that Alexander Isak and a couple of others, Bruno Gomes, Sven Botman, etc. But compared to other teams who, in the top 6, if you look at West Ham, you look at Nottingham Forest, you look at Chelsea, you look at Man United, you look at Liverpool, they've all spent more than us. And like, don't get me wrong, in 2 or 3 years' time, that might not be the case. But I just don't think Eddie Howe's getting the credit he deserves. And when Jesse Marsh said that, I was a bit like, I was a bit disappointed. Like, I thought, because he seems quite an honest guy. He seems like someone who just say it how it is. But do you think I'm wrong saying that, Joe? Or is that how you see it as well?
No, I think there's an element of truth in it. I've been quite a supporter of the way Newcastle have gone about it, me. I think even just with the players that you're or have brought in or have been linked to bringing in, it's not, you know, your massive names that say some of the other clubs went straight out. If you look at City, for example, when they went and signed Robinho and all these sort of names, Eddie Howe's maybe doing it a different way, being linked with someone like Jack Harrison, for example. You wouldn't. It's chalk and cheese in terms of how you're doing it. And I agree with you. You know, I've said before the fact that Shelvey, Willock, I mean, you could got Longstaff, you've got Joe Linton, you know, Almiron, all these players that were there and are now looking reborn. And that's why, for me, and again, I have this conversation and argument all the time, it's not always about bringing in better. Of course it helps, right? Of course it helps. But everyone keeps saying to me at the minute, it's not Jesse's fault, the players are rubbish. And I'm like, but Bielsa had the same players and he turned water into wine. And it's a similar thing at Newcastle. Like, okay, you could go get a big name manager, but there's no saying that they would have a similar impact on a Joel Linton or an Almiron. They'd just replace them with a better player. And I think there's a lot to be said about certain managers have the quality to be able to improve personnel. And Newcastle have definitely done that. I mean, look at Almiron. Like, that's insane. Like, he's in my fantasy team, man. He's in there, he's scoring me points week out. And he's staying in for tomorrow as well. So,
oh God, confidence running high in the Leeds camp with Almiron still in the fantasy team. But no, look, some great questions from yourself, Chris, and some really, really valid points. And there's a few people that have kind of commented on thoughts with regards to Leeds. Yano's put on there, all the talk before the Leeds City game was high intensity press, but he didn't see it. That's not how Leeds normally play, is it? I mean, that was how you played before, but that's not necessarily how you play under Jesse March. Would that be correct?
No, I mean, listen, when we have the ball, like, I thought we defended to a point all right against Manchester City, but then when we get on the ball, we don't know what to do with it, it seems, and we can't seem to pass the ball 5 yards. I think when you see Leeds games in isolation, you look at the performance against Chelsea, you might see the performance against Arsenal for 45 minutes and be like, oh, wow. But I think watch us when the onus is on us to create. I think that's when you'll see the distinct difference, you know. I think we weren't able to. Basically, Jesse wants to win the ball high up in the opposition's half, right? But we were unable to get anywhere close to that because we couldn't get out. Because when we did win the ball back, we couldn't pass the ball 5 yards to get further up the pitch. And then at that point, when we get further up the pitch, that press does come into play because Jesse wants to win the ball high up. We play so narrow as well. When you watch Leeds, you'll see it. This is why I'm petrified about Newcastle as well. It's like we play so narrow. There is so much space out wide. And Jesse's mentality, I believe, is don't. So say, for example, you've got the ball over on the left-hand side. All the team, like you could throw a blanket over them, would all move
and
over to that side.
Yeah.
But then you've got acres of space out wide. But Jesse says, the ball's not there, so it doesn't matter. But any good team just goes switch. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there was a compilation on Twitter, 4.5 minutes, right? 4.5 minutes of goal after goal after goal of the man at the back post being free and putting it into the back of the net because all the defence goes over to one side, someone's left there, over, back, goal. But apparently, I'm told that's personnel. I'm like, listen, doesn't matter how good your fullbacks are. You can't be in two places at once. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. You can't, I'm going to vacate this space and go mark him, but then you've got a massive hole between your centre-back and your full-back. So I think the system's not great, and I don't rate the manager.
And sometimes, Joe, as well, you've got, as a footballer, you know, you listen to your manager and your manager's got a plan and how they're going to work it. But sometimes when you're on the pitch, you've got to play the percentages. And these footballers, they've played hundreds of games and they know. Sometimes footballers have that instinct, don't they, where they can smell danger. Or they'll see someone constantly getting in and in and in. And whether the manager tells them or not, they'll think, right, hang on, I'm just going to wait here just a second because I've got a feeling the ball's going to come over the top. But if they're so rigid and doing like you said, it's going to keep happening time and time again. And unfortunately, Joe, I hate to worry you, but when you know, we've got Bruno Guimaraes in the middle who just pings balls, Sven Botman equally as capable. Like that is a worry from what you've just said.
No.
I mean,
And there's one or two other comments on here as well that one or two have mentioned. D. Turley has mentioned Jesse March consistently 1 or 2 matches from the sack, unlikely to be sacked after the defeat tomorrow, but lose to West Ham in the following game could likely to be or likely to go at that point. Woodeyes mentioned the point. Woodeye is regularly on our channel. He's put the Leeds the West Ham versus Leeds game could be the last game for either manager. Now, anyone that follows Dan Lawless from West Ham Fans TV will know that they're worried about their run of fixtures. They actually don't think that they'll get anything from Leeds. That's the way he's thinking. So from the way you're thinking from your perspective, it could well be the last game for either manager if things don't go the way in which you expect them in the next couple of games. But so some interesting points there as well. Daz has put in there, make sure we hit those likes or Chris will sing tomorrow. You've been warned. So yeah, make sure you get those likes in there. You don't want to be hearing Chris sing on our review show with regards to that. But I wanted to get your opinion on one or two of your players, but before we move on to look at the game a little bit closer. And Scott Crom, welcome Scott Crom to the channel. He's put in there, what do you think of Jack Harrison? I think it's a good place to start because Jack Harrison's been heavily linked at times in the summer with Newcastle. Looking at a potential 30 million bid. It has come, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, it's come when we've talked about it on our Full Loaded Transfer show with a little mix of opinions here. Some people think definitely worth the money. Let's pay. We should pay it. We should get him in. And some are going, not quite sure. What's your opinion from a Leeds perspective? What do you see week in, week out from Jack Harrison? If I'm right in thinking, he was on the bench against Man City.
Yeah, he was. He's just come back from an injury, though. There's a conspiracy theorist in me thinks he's staying away from game time so he can get his move to Newcastle. That's the conspiracy theorist in me. But we'll see. Jack Harrison. For me, since coming in, we had him on loan from Manchester City. He'd had spells at Stoke and Middlesbrough. Didn't really get a look in. Then we took him on loan, and Bielsa. He improved season on season, did Jack? And then we made the deal permanent for about 12 million, I think, after the season after COVID, which I think is great business. And look, Leeds United, where we are, we look to bring in players at cheaper prices and move them on. And I think Leeds United may well look to capitalise on that with Newcastle being interested, because if we don't sell him to you maybe January, I think that boat's missed, because I think Newcastle next season go for someone bigger and better because you'll be in Europe. Does that make sense? So that's where I think Leeds United might look at it, because there's no talk of a new deal, although Jack said his agent's coming over in January. I think his agent's in America. Jack spent a lot of time in America. He grew up in America, see. He was in the MLS, obviously, played for New York City, is it? Or with Lampard?
Was it the Man City group?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he played with Pirlo and Lampard, etc. So I think his agent's coming over in January. Now we're told that's for a new deal. I'm maybe not sure. It could be to push for a move to Newcastle. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. In terms of the player, like my man D says, he's very, very inconsistent. This season has gone a little bit off the boil, but can throw up moments. Like last season, he gets a hat-trick against West Ham. He was great in that win against you a couple of seasons back. He can be very, very good, but then can also go missing. I think as well, what I will say, I think he's underappreciated by a lot of Leeds fans because maybe he's not as flashy as a Rafinha. He can go under the radar a little bit. He can do a job. He will run all day. There was a time under Bielsa where he was literally left back and left midfielder. He basically just had the whole left-hand side to himself. He can certainly do a job. I like Jack Harrison. I do. I understand he's inconsistent, and maybe with us bringing in Sinisterra when he's fit, the emergence of Somerville, as I say, the club where we are, we look to capitalise on moving players at the right time. If we don't move him on now, maybe that boat's been missed. Does that make sense? So they'll bring in I think the whole plan is bring in a player and then sell them at the opportune moment, and then we move, like with Rafinha, for example, like with Calvin. And what I will say, if he don't get a new deal in January, or if it's not being spoken about, then I think, and the way where Leeds United are currently, we have to sell in order to buy. Yeah. So Jack could well fund a move for someone from the other leagues in Europe. I think if we get 25 to 30 million, maybe.
Interesting. No, it's great to get your perspective on them.
Yeah.
On Jack Harrison. Look, we've talked about Jack Harrison before, Chris. Would you? It's really interesting Joe's points here about Jack Harrison saying that it might be a now or never move to Newcastle if it is in January. Would you take him? We were talking about transfers last night. He didn't come across our conversation, but would you take someone like that?
Do you know what? I think? Well, the first thing after listening to Joe, when he mentioned the word inconsistent. Like I'm fed up of inconsistent wingers now. We've got Miggy, who's probably the most consistent player in the Premier League right now, which I'm absolutely loving. But for so many years, Miggy was in and out, and St. Maximin's in and out, and sometimes Fraser looked a world beater, and then he'd be looking pretty poor, and Jacob Murphy, you just don't know what's going to happen with him. So that kind of puts me off a little bit, I'll be honest. The only problem with Jack Harrison, and it sounds harsh to say, I just don't think he's very sexy. He's not one of those signings that you see and you go, "Oh, I'd love to get Jack Harrison." Jack Harrison would be incredible. And I think now, and we might have mentioned this on there in the the last lot of Fully Loaded transfer shows, Pete, where it kind of felt like that was the moment to go and get him. And now that moment's gone, it's like we're third in the league. Is it really going to get the fan base particularly excited if we brought in someone like Jack Harrison? Not to say that foreign players with foreign sounding names from an unknown league or an unknown club should be more exciting, or should be more more to get the fans' bums off seats. But quite often that's the case, isn't it? People see a steady, solid English player, and sometimes they go, "Is he good enough? Is that really what we want?"
It's the unknown, isn't it? It's the unknown.
Yeah.
People are excited by the unknown. And look, every club has it. You would have had it, Joe, with players that are coming from abroad that you don't know too much about, and you go, "Wow, I'm excited to see those players." And it's a natural thing. But look, there's no doubt about it. He has shown some quality. I'll go back to the point where. Sorry, Chris. You keep that tab there. I just wanted to go back to his point. He says, as a Leeds fan. I think Jack Harrison is amazing when in form and played in the correct, in his correct position, I assume he means. But when played on the opposite side, he hits a rough patch and really struggles. And so that's the opposite opinion from what was mentioned previously by D in saying it was inconsistent. So, you got two perspectives there from two different Leeds fans. So that's it's an interesting perspective. I just want to get your quick thoughts, quick run through on a few players, and I've just highlighted a few players because they've interested me because I've seen a little bit of quality in these players, and one of them is Brendan Aronson. So we brought him in the summer, and what I loved about him, I actually think he would be really well suited in a Newcastle team because of his intensity, because of his work rate, because of his high press, and they're the qualities that I've seen from him. But what do you fans, from a Leeds perspective, think of Brendan Aronson since he's come into the club?
Yeah, I think, like I say, we've taken to him 100%. I have been of late asking for a bit more from him personally, just in terms of goal contributions, goals and assists. But I think you can't just lay that at his door when we're struggling to actually create chances, But in terms of what he's been brought in to do, you're right. In terms of pressing and he's running, and he's great on the ball as well. His nickname's the Medford Messi. That's where he's from in America. So he is really good on the ball. And he's only very, very young, and I think he will go on to just improve for sure. But for me personally, I think with Leeds fans, he's getting a bit of a free ride because some of the other players aren't as maybe doing as well as they should. But I do think I need to see more from him. Like, ultimately, a player playing in his position higher up the pitch should be getting more goals and assists, And I think we've seen the one goal against Chelsea when he pressed Mendy into oblivion and put it in the back of the net. But other than that, and I'm struggling to think. So I just want to see a bit more in terms of goal contributions for him. But like, I really, really rate him. Really, really rate him. Shocked he wasn't starting for the States in the World Cup, to be honest. He kept getting brought off the bench, and I think he could have done a better job than some of the players in the forward line for sure. So, he's a good player, still very young, and I'm a massive fan of him for sure.
Definitely. I like that comment in there.
I do, I was just seeing that, yeah.
Alan Thompson is a regular Newcastle fan, is part of the Loaded family. He's put, Joe, you're a legend at Leeds. Saw you on the last day when Wilson scored 2 against Burnley, and I thought
I was so happy.
Oh, please you stayed up, but please play crap tomorrow. Alan's always honest with his opinions on stuff. But no, it's we're a channel where we've got fans of the club that we appreciate other fans and other people from different fan bases. So great comment in there, Alan, with regards to Joe. Absolutely spot on. Just a couple of players before we go to our sort of next segment. So we'll go through these quite quickly. Tyler Adams getting a lot of interest from a lot of other clubs. Plays that midfield role. Is he more like of a number 6, that sort of sitting midfielder? What do you make of him since he's come into the club?
He's my favourite player. Like, I absolutely love him. He's an absolute destroyer in there. Just breaks everything up. Obviously, spent time at Leipzig. Went a bit sour for him there, and I think a lot of players would have preferred a different name coming in. But for me, he's been the best signing under Jesse Marsh. I will say that much. He's the United States captain. I think when Cooper moves on, he'll probably captain Leeds United as well. Speaks so well. I'm a massive fan of him. Like, we missed him against City. He was suspended. He'll be back for the Newcastle game, and that is one massive plus. He'll be chomping at the bit as well. I think he had a very good World Cup, did Tyler Adams, and like I say, he was the youngest captain at the World Cup, and he, for me, is one of the shining lights of this season. Like, he can do no wrong for me because he's just, his passing's not great, but for me, that's not really his job. Like, Adams is in there to just break everything up and give it to the other players that can pass a bit better. People tell me he is a good passer, but I disagree, but it is what it is. But give it to a Matt Rocker, and Matt Rocker will be the one to move it on, maybe, or like an Aronson, etc. But tomorrow you'll see, like, he will be everywhere. Whoever plays in your midfield, if it's Joe Linton or whatever, like, he will give him a good game for sure. We definitely missed him against City, so I'm so glad he'll be back tomorrow.
I'm not happy about that, but no, he looks a talented player. That is for sure. Just really quickly, this player here, Wilfred Gnonto, is that right?
Yeah.
I watched him against Man City, and I thought he looked a decent little player. He was nippy, he was pressing high, committing players, certainly their defence. Where does he come from? I don't really know too much about him.
It's mad, Pete, really. So we were actually supposed to sign Gnonto next season, right? And then at the end of the window, we needed a striker. So we tried to sign Gakpo and a lad called Bamba Dieng. Radvazani said, Bamba Dieng's done. Deal done. Yeah, you were linked to Bamba Dieng.
Yeah, I remember that on the transfer window.
And then he never got on the plane.
I remember it.
Yeah. And we'd got rid of Dan James to Fulham in order to finance that deal, because Dan James on like 50 grand a week. So he's gone on loan there. That would help us finance Dieng. So then Dieng never happened. So the club shit themselves basically and said, right, we're going to have to bring forward the Gnonto deal. So we brought him in from Zurich, brought him in like a season before we should. And Jesse was saying, look, he's not ready, etc. And I think a lot of us were a bit frustrated, thinking we've got rid of James for a lad who's nowhere close. He's been given minutes. Roberto Mancini's played him for Italy as well. He's got a few caps for Italy. And like you say, that young fearlessness, like he just has taken to it like a duck to water. I just love even his stature. He's small, stocky, big duck ass. You know what I mean? That kind of, you know what I mean? Though, that kind of build. I'm like, I love it. And he's not afraid to have a go. So I'm a massive fan of his. Yeah, definitely.
No, there were just a few players that I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on, because they're just a few players of interest that I've looked and I've gone, they look like really, really good players. I'm sure there are many more that we could talk about, but I think at this point, stats anyone?
No time to draw.
I like magic. He appears. Keith, Merry Christmas to you. Great to have you on again. How are you doing, my man?
Yeah. Had a good Christmas, and Merry Christmas to you all as well. Hope you all had a good Christmas and looking forward to the new year as well. Festivities tomorrow.
Definitely. Look, Joe won't know because it's his first time on the channel. We have our resident statman Keith, who will be throwing some stats at us very, very shortly. So Keith, let's get it away. What stats have you got for us for Newcastle United against Leeds? Hopefully there's some good ones.
Yeah, well, I'll warn you, I've an up and down journey as I always do with the stats. So I've got some general head-to-head stats, then I've got a few on managers, players from both teams, and then I've got some general rounding off stats as well to finish off with. So general head-to-head stats, Newcastle's record against Leeds since 93-94 in the Premier League, played 26, won 12, drawn 7 and lost 7. So Newcastle have got quite a good record in this fixture. Newcastle have got a better attacking record in this fixture as well, 40 goals to Leeds' 36. So fairly close, fairly competitive their game. Newcastle have got a better defensive record as well in the fixture as well, 8 clean sheets to Leeds' 3 clean sheets in those fixtures. Here's an interesting stats for you, everyone. Since Newcastle last played Leeds in a pivotal 1-0 win at Ellen Road in January, they've picked up 70 points from 33 games, which is more than double the amount of Leeds.
Sliding doors. I told you, didn't I?
You did say it, Joe. You're absolutely right. Sliding doors moment.
And in that time as well, Leeds had 10 more points than Newcastle, and Newcastle were, if you remember, rooted to the bottom almost at that stage at that time. Managers, a little bit about Eddie Howe. Although it has to be said, this is mainly when he was the Bournemouth manager. He's managed 8 games. He's won only 2 and lost 6. But as I say, that's mainly with Bournemouth as manager. Players, Callum Wilson, believe it or not, hasn't scored in 4 games against Leeds. He does have 2 assists. Chris Wood has scored 3 times in 12 games against Leeds United. Rodrigo, some interesting stats about Rodrigo here. 9 goals in 15 games. And I hope I pronounce this or get close to pronouncing this correctly. Crescencio Somerville. 4 goals. Perfect. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you. In 11 games, they're the top scorers for Leeds so far this season. And Rodrigo as well, he's scored 2 goals and has 2 assists in 7 games against Newcastle, and he's won 4 games again as well in those games against Newcastle. So he's got quite a good record, Rodrigo. General form here, head-to-head for both teams. Newcastle are on an 11-game unbeaten run in the Premier League, and they'll equal their record of unbeaten matches in the Premier League, 12 games, which they set in 94-95 season. And the start of the 97-98 season if they remain unbeaten against Leeds. Whereas Leeds haven't had it so good, which you'll know about. Leeds have won 2 of their last 12 games in the Premier League, 2 wins, 2 draws and 8 defeats. But the game that they did win in those 2 wins was an impressive 2-1 win at Anfield against Liverpool just the other month. Nick Pope, a bit about the goalkeepers. Nick Pope has the most clean sheets in the Premier League with 8, compared to Elian Meslier with 2 clean sheets for Leeds this season. Newcastle have got the best defence in the Premier League as well, with 11 goals conceded in 16 games. 5 of those conceded in home games. We all know 3 of those were against Man City. Leeds, however, have the 4th worst defence. I'm sorry about this. Leeds have got the 4th worst defence in the Premier League, conceding 29 goals in 15 games, with 17 of those 29 goals being conceded in away matches. And Leeds have also the 2nd worst away record in the Premier League this season, with 1 win, averaging a rate of 2 goals being conceded in away matches this season. I'm sorry, I did say it was an up and down roller coaster there of stats.
They were. I'll be honest, Keith. That's probably the most positive one we've had in a long time. Honestly, Joe, we don't normally get positive stats like that. Normally, it's the other way around. But we had a little moment in the middle. But Keith, as always, outstanding. Some fantastic stats there. And gives us a little flavour with regards to what we might be expecting. Look, I think we can all agree that I think there'll be some goals scored in this game tomorrow. But where they go and how many for each team is up for grabs, that's for sure. But look, just before we get onto the questions and predictions and we start to kind of wrap up the show, what I wanted to do is just very, very quickly just have a look at the team lineups. So hopefully you can see this on the screen now. I've got the potential lineup for Newcastle United, and of course I always speak to the opposition. So I spoke to Joe and got him to put his team together. So Joe, I hope that team looks right.
There's these question marks over it, but I think that's what Jesse will go with. I can see him dropping Cooper, which might sound wild, but I think maybe he will, and bring in Llorente. Forshaw did well against City. He has been going with a 4-3-3 as opposed to the 4-2-3-1. So I think Forshaw probably deserves to keep his place. You've got to play Adams in there. Jack Harrison and Somerville, though, both could be knocking at the door. So you may see them coming. But then at the same time, you can't really drop Willie Nyonto for his performance against City. He's got to play. And them two both play off the left. He did try Aronson in the false 9 and Rodrigo out wide against City, which I just found insane. But I'm hoping he doesn't do that again. I'd leave Aronson out on the right, Rodrigo in the centre. Listen, it'll probably be wrong. Do you know what I mean? The thing is, I have no clue under this manager anymore. What the plan is, what the formation is. I'm done, Pete. I'm done.
Honestly, I can. Honestly, me and Chris, look, Chris, you will agree. We can feel it in what you've said already so far. So it is very much a prediction. But just before I get Chris and Keith's opinion from a Newcastle perspective, where do you think, if you're going to win the game or you're going to get a goal or two against Newcastle at St James's Park, where is it going to come from, and you know what's the way in which you're going to score?
Was that to me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Repeat the question, bro. I didn't realise you'd said that to me.
No. I was going to say, just before I move on to Chris and Keith, Joe, from your perspective, you know, where do you think your team? Where do you think you're going to win the game or potentially score the goals from? You know, whereabouts on the pitch do you think you could make the difference?
To be honest, mate, I struggle to see it right now, Pete, genuinely, because all my head is saying to me is that Newcastle will win the game. I don't know. We've got to defend really, really well for sure. I think it helps us if Wood starts over Wilson. I'm not sure. Will Wilson be fit, do we think? Is he going to be fit?
He's back in training.
He's back in training.
He's been training a couple of days now. So, look, I've put him in there just because I think he's just going to want to play. But it could quite easily, I'll stick him on there. It could quite easily be adding Wood into that situation for sure.
Yeah. Like if Wood starts, I think that favours Leeds a little bit more because I do worry about Wilson for sure and his pace. I guess it's all about being able to progress the ball up the pitch further enough for Jesse's tactics to come into play. Really, I do. Look, can we cause Dan Burn, Fabian Schär problems potentially? I think, look, Dan Burn is strong, but out of the whole back line, if we're to just look at it on paper, I think, we potentially can get joy there, but I'm expecting Newcastle to win the game, mate, in all honesty. I haven't really factored in a thought process of Leeds getting something, unfortunately. It's just where my head's at.
No, I think that's more than fair. Chris, from your perspective, and I've just moved one or two players around here just to kind of like open up the pitch slightly. But looking at that team, would you agree? Would you think Wood will start? Would you agree with that lineup? And where do you think, and I think I've got an idea of where you're going to go with this. Is that where do you think Newcastle could potentially win the game?
Do you know what, Pete? I'm not going to spend too long on the lineup because I've got a weird feeling that we're going to shake things up tomorrow in terms of the lineup. I'd be very, very surprised if Chris Wood doesn't start, purely because I know Callum Wilson was out with an illness and it wasn't meant to be an injury, was it? But I think Eddie Howe and his backroom staff are going to have a close eye on the Arsenal game on the 3rd. I really, really do. And it wouldn't surprise me if he made 2 or 3 changes. Now, not to say that I think he should or I want him to, but I'm just thinking in terms of squad management, it wouldn't surprise me if he changed 2 or 3 players. But based on that team, Pete, that 11 that you've got on the pitch now, that would be the team I'd go for personally. I believe that's unchanged. And I think, it would be harsh to kind of, drop anybody, whether or not it's resting them. I don't know. That's a different conversation. But yeah, for me, that's probably our strongest team based off the last performance. And yeah, I'm going to say that the threat's down our right hand side. Almiron at the minute, he's a threat for anybody. And correct me if I'm wrong, and you may have already said this, Joe. So apologies if you have, mate. But Strike. He's not. Yeah, he's not a natural left back, is he?
No, he's not. He's a left centre back. A lot of Leeds fans would prefer him to be playing at left centre back, but we don't have an adequate left back at the minute at the football club, so he's had to go there. So look, he does do a good job, but obviously against better opposition, he's naturally going to struggle because he's not a proper left back, So yeah, Almiron. Well, look, Almiron's in hot form. I don't think it matters who he's going up against at the minute, is it? He'll score goals, won't he? So yeah,
definitely. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I agree with you, Chris. I think the right-hand side is the one where most games are won at the moment. It's this little trio here, this little triangle that I've just created here with Bruno, Trippier, and Almiron. They just seem to cause havoc as they did against Leicester. But don't mark out Joe Linton, who's been fantastic on this left-hand side, creating a lot of problem in there. And Wood likes that physical battle. He scored, obviously, the penalty. I thought he played excellent against Leicester, I've got to be honest. So, I do agree. I think he could well start. I just think Wilson will be chomping at the bit to get back in because he just wants to score goals and get his name on the team sheet. But Keith, from your perspective, anything that you maybe would change really quickly or anywhere else you think we could affect the game from a Newcastle perspective?
I think Chris has raised some good points there, and that was in my line of thinking as well about the right-hand side and the dominance. It's just been a recurrent theme throughout the year, hasn't it, really, when you think about when Trippier joined and the improvement of Almiron almost going hand in hand. I think a lot of my thoughts with this and decisions, a potential change in game management come in terms of how well the game is going. So, for instance, if you get to half-time and you're 2-0 up, early in the second half, do you make a few changes? Do you maybe bring on ASM for do you bring on ASM for Almiron or something like that? Do you bring in Murphy for Willock, perhaps? Do you bring on Andy maybe for Longstaff, midway through the second half if the game is put ahead? But that would be my line of thinking in terms of game management. Try and get that to something that we're not used to as Newcastle fans before this year has been sort of getting a good leading a game, and then maybe changing it in the second half.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And remember, we can make 5 subs, so we have an opportunity to move some of those players out and make some of those changes. That is for sure. And there's a reason why I position the players like how, because this is what you'll find, in my opinion, during the game. So Dan Burn will sit here and almost be a third centre back at times. And if Aronson's playing on this side, he will look to kind of stop him. You'll see Gnonto is here, and you'll see Trippier is quite high up. Trippier will always look to attack, but what you'll find is that these 2 players will come in to try and stifle that. And Botman's quite confident in being one-on-one, as he did against Leicester with Patson Daka, for long spells throughout the game. But this is what will happen here. You'll have these 4 players at some point around in this area here, and Almiron will just come and take that middle spot. And he'll allow Trippier to get forward here. He'll allow Bruno to play in these areas here. And they'll just drift. They'll drift in and around, inside, and he'll just create havoc this way. And the other players will just play around him. Wood will just try and be a fox in the box. And Joe Linton will just be that outlet. And that's where we're effective, because we just constantly shift and change. One thing I'll add in there is I wouldn't be surprised if you see this at some point. It happened about 7 or 8 times throughout the game, is that Willock and Joe Linton have this telepathy of understanding that they can just swap positions based on how the play is going. And it just seems seamless. It doesn't change. So just 1 or 2 things to look out for on the tactics board with regards to that, and looking at as the game's progressing. But just a little something tactically on how the game might work out. So yeah, thanks all for your opinions on that one. For sure. So keep an eye out for one or two of those things that might pop up during the game from what from everyone, from what Joe, Chris, Keith, and myself have said from that perspective. We're coming towards the end of the show. I think we've got 5 or 6 minutes left. So I want to fire some questions at Joe. And there's a number of questions in the chat. So Chris, I don't know if you want to throw some at Joe before we get predictions.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I'm going to throw my own one at you, Joe, first, so apologies for that, and I'll try and get through as many in the chat as I can as well. But I had to ask this question because his family literally live around the corner from me. I want to ask you about Joe Gelhardt. What do you think of him as a player, and do you think that he's going to make it at Leeds, or do you think he may end up moving on?
No, I hope and pray that he makes it, mate. He's a fantastic talent. There were huge clubs after him when he moved on from Wigan. We got him for next to nothing due to their administration at the time. I think he will go on to have a great career in the game. I'm not sure Jesse's the right man for him. I know it sounds like I'm battering Jesse all the time, and apologies for any Leeds fans watching, but he's just too inconsistent. And what was quite interesting in when Jesse came in, a player called Sam Greenwood, who's from Sunderland, sort of like went ahead of him in the pecking order a little bit. And it feels like at times Joffrey can be a bit of an afterthought. Look, he came on against City, did really, really well, but I'm just not sure I have the confidence in him leading the line in this Jesse system, if you like. So look, he's a great prospect for sure, mate. Goes without saying, but I'm not sure Jesse's going to get the best start of him. But yeah, I want him to stick around, and maybe a different manager has a different, impact on him, let's say.
Yeah. Also, Daz wants to ask you, Joe, we should be looking for a keeper or two in the summer. Thoughts on NEWLEE to Newcastle? 22 years old, cap for France, under 18, 19, 20, 21 would be an interesting option. What are your thoughts on NEWLEE? I know he's only a youngster, isn't he? So
yeah, he's unreal. I think he'll go on to be France's number one. I think he'll take over from Hugo Lloris. I think the only reason he didn't go to the World Cup this time is because they wanted him to spend a bit of time with the 21s. Obviously, they've got Mandanda and a few others, Areola at West Ham, haven't they? But I think his time will come. He's great. I think the thing is, we paid $5 million for him from Lorient in France. Yeah. Chelsea tried to get him a few seasons before, but he said he wasn't ready for a move at that point. He was still very, very young. We managed to pick him up for $5 million. And he's been amazing. And what worries me as a Leeds fan is I look around the league, I look at Spurs, I look at Man United and think they are going to need a keeper soon. And they'll be looking at keepers for the long haul, you know, and Meslier being so young. I think he got the record for the most clean sheets for anyone under the age of 21 when Bielsa was there, because it was held by Joe Hart at City. And it makes you wonder, like, for him to be playing at Leeds as well, not City, and still getting that award for the most clean sheets for a keeper of his age says a lot about him. Thought he was great against City the other night. He made some great saves before actually, you know, from Haaland, which is no mean feat. So, yeah, he's a great prospect. Is Pope going to move on? He wouldn't be a number 2 for sure. Definitely not, if that's what you mean, Daz. Or do you mean to take over Pope?
I would assume he'd been to take over Pope. I don't think Meslier will come to Newcastle as number 2.
No,
I mean, Pete, would you say that? I don't think that'd be the case, would it?
The thing about it is Pope, I think, is only like 31. So I think Pope is at least another 3 years at Newcastle for sure before we look at replacing him, unless things take a downturn, in which then we would look at a higher profile goalkeeper. It's one of those things. But I know what Daz is getting at, because we've got Darlow currently as our number 2, or Karius, whoever you would see, and long term we want strong options to look at in all positions. So I do get what Daz is saying with regards to that. A couple of questions before we wrap up, because I know we're near to that time.
Yeah, we've got 2 more, and you'll like the last one, Joe. So Scott Crom says, Joe, what do you think about the rumours of Chris Wood being linked with Leeds? Would you take Chris Wood, or would you be looking elsewhere?
Mate, I'd take anyone who could find the back of the net right now. I can't lie to you, right? Listen, we had Chris Wood, obviously, before he moved from us to Burnley. He left us in the lurch a little bit, but I understand he wanted to move to the Premier League. I think he scored like 27 goals under Gary Monk at Leeds. He knows where the goal is, but I don't know if he'd suit our system in terms of what's expected from a pressing standpoint and stuff. But listen, people batter me, and you might disagree, but I like Shea Adams, so I'd probably take Chris Wood. Yeah, I like Shea. Well, there you go then, mate. I think
I coached him when he was in the school, so that's
right. Okay.
I've got an affiliation to.
Yeah, I like him. We keep getting linked to him, and Leeds like, nah, we need better than that. And I just think sometimes you need to realise where we are. We're not punching at the top, man. You can't get these big boys, and I think he'd do a job for me. But I don't think Chris Wood's moving on, is he? I think he said he's staying, right?
I don't think he'll leave until the summer.
Yeah.
Depends on the price, though, doesn't it, Pete?
Yeah,
someone comes in.
That's
someone
true.
comes in. Yeah.
Daz has already put in there. Chris would be a good option for Leeds or Everton if we're bringing in another striker. Yeah. I think Daz would like him at ASAP, but that's for another day.
And then the last question I wanted to ask you, Joe, which a few people have put in. So Frederick Alexson says, best player to play for Newcastle and Leeds. We've got Woodgate. D. Taylor says Gary Speed. You've got Lee Bowyer, Mark Viduka. Yeah. Who would you say?
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard not to go with Gary Speed, right? Because, as you know, but for me, one of my favourite players growing up was David Batty. So it'd be a toss-up between them. It sounds daft, right? But when I was at junior school, this is funny, I always remember it. Like when we'd play football at lunchtime, I was always David Batty, and the reason is because I said I'd perfected his signature. So I used to go in and go, look, I'm David Batty, I can do his signature. So I'll have to go for Batty, but listen, I love Gary Speed, man. So yeah, there's loads, isn't there? I forget.
Yeah, there's loads.
As well,
Woodgate. Viduka was class for you guys.
Yeah,
he weren't that great for us, but he was great for you guys.
Yeah, amazing. He was. They were the good times, bro. This is what's depressing for me. Rodrigo's 2 goals away from entering our all-time highest Premier League goal scorers, and I think it's a travesty. But it shows how far we've been how long we've been out of the division that someone like him can get in that list when you consider some of the names we've had. But it's what happens when you're out of the top flight for so long, isn't it?
That's it, mate.
That's it. Definitely. Look, we'll wrap up for the questions there. Thank you for everyone that put your questions in the chat. Sorry, didn't get around all of them, but really, really appreciate all your support with regards to that. Just going to get a quick round because I know Joe, you've got a show. You've got a date with the pub, Chris, and we need to wrap up the show really quickly. So just go a little round robin of predictions for tomorrow's game. Chris, let's start with you.
I'm still going to have to say Newcastle win. I will say 2-1 Newcastle.
Interesting. Joe, what do you think the score will be?
I'll go 2-1 Newcastle, but my heart, I'll go 1-1. That's the best.
No, fair play. Keith, what do you think the score's going to be tomorrow?
Stranger things have happened. I mean, the big question is are Newcastle going to finish with a flourish this season? In a year where they've won 21 games, drawn 6, lost 6, and have got 71 points, which is the best run they've had since 2002, which has topped it, in fact. Stranger things have happened because literally Leeds have actually, to back up Joe's point there, Leeds have actually got a better record in recent years at St James's. They haven't been beaten in 3. They've had 2 draws and they've had a win, compared to their record at Elland Road, where Newcastle have won twice and they've lost once. So anything could happen. But tomorrow, I think going with the stats, going with the form, going with how Newcastle are playing, you could have an inspired Bruno and you could have an inspired Joe Linton as well with Pele. You know, what's happened there, sadly, with Pele, it inspired the Brazilians. So it could be a 2-0 win to Newcastle, or a 2 clear goal win to Newcastle, or a 2-1 win to Leeds. I'm predicting Newcastle tomorrow.
Okay. I thought you were going to sit on the fence there again. I was going, please no, Keith. But no,
I'm off the fence for Christmas and New Year.
Get it. Festive period gets him off the fence. I love it, Keith. I'm going to go 2-0 Newcastle win. I just think our defence is so strong at the moment. And some of the points that Joe has mentioned about the team currently, I just think we're going to exploit them, particularly on the wings, like you've mentioned. You play a narrow system on the wings. I think we're going to exploit you. But look, Joe, just as we wrap up with the sponsors and various other things, I'm going to let you go because I know you got your show. Just before you leave, thank you, John Burbeck, for your £4.49 super sticker. Thank you very much for your support. Just tell us where we can find you and where we can watch your shows on YouTube.
Yeah, just Joe Football Show, heavily Leeds United, but I do Premier League content as well. I've actually got a stream going live at 8 o'clock. We'll touch on Newcastle briefly, but a lot of it's just going to be about the state of the football club right now.
Excellent. So look,
getting angry.
All Newcastle fans, go and sub to Joe's channel. Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me on.
Enjoyed chatting to you.
Thank you.
I'll let you go. You take care. See you later.
Take care, Joe.
We just keep getting fantastic guests on away days, and I love it. And obviously, Richie knew Joe beforehand because he'd done a show with him. So massive thanks to Richie for that. Obviously, Joe's brilliant, and we'll definitely look to get him back on again for the reverse fixture, no doubt. But just as we wrap up very, very quickly, we have to say thank you to our sponsors. They've all been in the chat, or vast majority of them have been in the chat tonight. Thank you to Simon at Shyburns, www.shyburns.com, for all of Shyburns' various different clothing range, all related to either loaded or all things mental health. So please show your support for Shyburns. Thank you to Pins and Prints for all your pins and prints, various different ones available and some new ones on the way for sure. Thank you for Marty at Machine House for everything and all your support with the channel. Check out Marty's various different ranges, and obviously Dean at the Geordie Rise. Lots and lots of gear available. Go and check the Geordie Rise out. And of course, a fantastic new sponsor. We've got Russ, the radiatorshed.com. Go and check it out. Keith is in jail at the moment. Go and check that out. And of course, all designs are manufactured in Italy. Aluminium rads are very environmentally friendly and perfect for heat source pumps. They offer a home survey service and will install if required. And just a little snippet of what Russ is offering. So look, if you're looking for new rads in the new year, you know where to go. The Radiator Shed is the one. And whilst you're there, click on to join the LUFC family. Click that blue button, $1.99 a month. Only can do it on your laptop, by the way. But come and join the LUFC family. We've had Seattle join us as a member tonight, and of course we are getting ever closer to that 5K. Thank you for all your subscribes over the last 24, 48 hours. Keep pushing it. Let's see if we can get to 5K by New Year's Eve. Let's see if we can enter the new year with 5K. Let's see if we can make that happen. We've got a review show tomorrow night, so hopefully we can get enough subs that we can hit the new year with 5K. And of course, shows to look out for coming up. We've got the reaction show with regard to Leeds. We'll be on tomorrow night. I think it's around 6:30. So not too long after the game, we'll be doing the review show. I'm not going to show you the away days one because I'm waiting to confirm who's going to be on the away day show. But for Arsenal, but it's looking to be a top a couple of guests that are going to come and join us for away days. And of course, we've got the loaded reaction to away days that will be coming up soon. Thank you so much for everyone in the chat. And I think 104, 250 in the chat watching tonight. An earlier show tonight, but really, really appreciate it. Anyone that's going to the game tomorrow, have a fantastic time. Hopefully, fingers crossed for 3 points. Keith, pleasure to have you back. I know you've been really, really busy with family and various different things at the moment that have been going on, but I really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us. And thank you very much. And look, we are delighted to have you back in the new year for lots more stats coming our way for sure on the LUFC family. And Chris, I know you got a date at the pub. Luckily, it's just around the corner for you, so you can jump straight off. But thank you for coming and taking the time and joining me. Brand new Blaze, back on, back to back, 2 nights in a row.
3 tomorrow, Pete. 3
tomorrow. You are absolutely right. So anyone, it's still on. Click the likes as you leave. Make sure you're on at 6:30 for the review, and hopefully 3 points in the bag. And of course, we do love playing away. How do you like that?